This is the third video on the 69 Bonneville. First two videos I talked about the seal on the front of the timing case cover and the timing chain in the second video. This is the radiator I use. This is from Jegs. I think I just paid just over $300 for it, and it's an exact fit for the Bonneville. This had a 4-core radiator originally. The dimensions are the same. The only thing you have to do, even the rubber things, there's rubber gaskets, little rubber wedge things on the top and on the bottom, and those will fit in fine. The only thing you have to do is I got another fan shroud here. To make it work, you're going to have to notch the bottom corner so that the radiator fits flush in this area. So if you got, there should be, if this has already been messed around with, I didn't touch it, but there'll be a little piece of plastic sticking up. You want the radiator to sit flush. So this thing will go right on, no problem. That's the only small alteration you got to do on that. And the only other thing is, when you're doing the hoses, I kind of tighten these. There's 4 bolts on the top, and there's 3 on the bottom. I tighten those too tight, and I had to loosen them because the hose, it's a real tight fit in this area. So keep this top part, just finger tighten the top bolts, and then just work the hose on, and then push the hose clamp in. These hoses I got upper and lower from Rock Auto, and the bottom one I mentioned in the other video I had. There's a spring in the old original one. The new ones don't come with a spring. It probably would make sense to put it in so it doesn't collapse. It gives it some strength. So I pulled it out with needle nose pliers and I pushed it in. And I pushed it in from the bigger side and just kind of straightened it out as I pushed it in. So it's in there to give it support. So if you don't have one, you probably should get one somehow. I don't know if they even sell them. But and the only other thing on this bottom radiator hose is this right here. I had to give it a haircut. 1.5 inches off the end of the rubber hose to get it on the bottom of the radiator. Otherwise it's too long and it puts like a flat spot in the hose. It starts to kink it because it's pushing it back too far. So take 1.5 inches off of the hose, and that should fit pretty good. And the other thing on this radiator, I only have this out just to show you. You got to use the on the older cars, you got to use the green. And I like the ones to add water. I don't like the pre-mix because they recommend distilled water. You can get that at the supermarket. This is a 50-50 mix. So I put a 50-50 mix. This size heater, radiator, an engine takes 17.25 quarts. So it took almost the full 2 gallons of antifreeze and almost a full 2 gallons of distilled water. While I was here too, this had a piece of hose. Someone cut it because they couldn't unspin the connection on the old radiator. So I put a rubber hose, but I put a 5/16 compression fitting. Bought a 1-foot piece of 5/16 fuel line, cut it, and I already ran this thing. Nothing leaks. It's holding water good. All the fittings, everything lines up for the training lines if you got an automatic. If not, just plug them. I also changed this 4-foot long. The system was all drained, so now is the time to do things that you wouldn't have a chance to do, with no water in it. And now's the time. It's a 4-foot hose, 3/4 inch. It goes all the way up to the heater core. I didn't change the short one. Yeah, there wasn't any issues with that, but at least if I had to change it, there's not going to be a lot of drainage for the antifreeze. The belts are all new. I changed those. What else was there? This fuel pump, I'm always saying this, can't show you everything I did because it was already wide open. If you're doing the fuel pump, when I put it in, this is the paperwork. I kind of drew it. I drew a circle, makes it a little more off center, eccentric. When it spins around the cam on the engine, it's obviously not on center because it has to go up and down, up and down. That's what's pumping the fuel pump. But I noticed when I had it on top dead center on the engine, after I took the cover off to see the timing chain and gear, this was at its I guess you can call it the highest point, which is probably the best time to push this fuel pump in, because you got to push it down, get it underneath. You don't want to have this thing all the way around with the high, I'll say the low point, I guess. When the low point is way down here, it's really pumping the fuel pump. It's going to make it harder to put it underneath there to tighten the 2 bolts. So it might make it easier if you can do it. Go to top dead center, and this will probably be the least force on the fuel pump when you go to put the 2 bolts in. And then that will put it in a better, and make it easier to put in. Another thing I didn't think of doing, or I thought about it but didn't do it, when I had everything off, I should have put some oil on the timing chain and gear. But I didn't do it. But everything here wasn't here. The alternator was off, power steering was off. That hole to the fuel pump, can't really see it with this, but it was wide open, and the timing chain is right behind it. So I got just a squirt can. I dumped all the old garbage oil out, put 30 weight in it. This is, obviously hoses are going to be different. Same with the cans. This is just a piece of vacuum / windshield wiper hose. This one's, I don't know what the heck it is, five something. Whatever it is, as long as it pushes on the neck. And I just basically, this is all open, like I said. There was really nothing here. So I just put the squirt can down. I squirted the chain in a couple of different locations up and down into the bottom gear on the timing chain, the one on the crankshaft. And then I just put the breaker bar on here. I didn't have any of this stuff on either. This is done. So the belts, pulleys, everything was off. 15/16 socket with a breaker bar, and I turned it a quarter of a turn, squirted more oil on the chain, turned it a quarter turn again, more oil on the chain, then I turned it one more quarter. So that was the full rotation. I got oil squirted all over the thing, and then I did another rotation completely around, so I know oil got on all the chain and all the gears. And then it was fine. Started up, everything worked out good. What else was I gonna say? These torque wrenches. Here's the bad news section. This was Harbor Freight's 3/8 wrench right here. Here's the 1/2-inch torque wrench. This one does go down to 10 foot-pounds. This one goes down to 5 at 3/8. They recommend, I think it was 12 or 15 foot-pounds for the water pump. And it wouldn't click. I had them on 15, and you know when a bolt's gonna give. It just wasn't kept, it felt like it kept turning and turning. I was waiting for them to snap. I turned it down to 10, it still didn't click. I turned it down to 5, it still didn't click. So apparently these torque wrenches don't work on low torque specifications, so watch out, or you'll end up breaking the bolts, break the heads right off of them. I even tried to go to the 1/2-inch. The 1/2-inch will go as low as 10 to see if I can get that one to work. That didn't click either. So I ended up stopping. Common sense had to kick in, and knew that it wouldn't take that much to turn these right here. I felt like I was gonna strip them. It only goes into aluminum. Those are steel. Either would have stripped the aluminum, or maybe would have snapped the bolt. I don't know. So watch these Harbor Freight if you have a low torque setting, because they won't click. And the video before this too, not that I didn't know what I was talking about. The end of the second video, I was pointing to this was the case that was up on the car, and I was pointing to the water pump area, and I said fuel pump. It's common sense, that's a water pump goes, but I happen to say fuel pump. Fuel pump has 2 bolts, the water pump has 11. I think I know the difference. So everything worked out. Jegs for the radiator. If you got a 69 Bonneville, fits fine. Probably any other full-size Catalina, executive, late 60s, early 70s. Look it up. It's worth grabbing. Hoses from Rock Auto. I put a new thermostat in too, cleaned the housing up, new gasket, thermostat. I guess from what I read, it's 180 degrees would be the correct thermostat for that. And that's it. This is just an info. I'm not doing the work's done, but in case you run into something, you want this radiator, trim the fan shroud down the bottom, square it up. Don't tighten the top till you get the hoses on. It tightens up. The rubber seals fit pretty good in there. No problem. The hose, the lines line up with the automatic transmission lines. And that's it. Hopefully this gives you some info before you tackle this thing. It's good to have a heads up. Some of these guys, I don't have time to video what I'm doing, but I give you a heads up on what needs to be done, or what wrenches you need, or what wrenches not to get. So that's it. It's all flowing and it's going. I just got to get it on the road. See ya.